now. Cool. We'll give it a minute for folks to join, and see when the thing goes live. Twitch dashboard. There we go. Red. Awesome. Cool. Well, we're live. Fantastic. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fourth Culture. My name is Ramji, as you can see right here. It's pretty obvious. With me is the fantastic Casey, who is over from a sort of sister or a baby sister stream called Ciencia D&D. Ciencia D&D.
You're getting better at it.
I'm getting better at it, right? Day by day. It happens. It's at some point I'll get it right and you'll change the name of the stream. He is somebody that is a proponent of Talespire. I am a proponent of Talespire. We think it's rad. And so we're going to spend a little time to talk about Talespire. We're going to kind of show you how to use it within some reason, and then show you the strange and dirty hacks that we use that kind of make it a bit more, use it fast and get it going. And I think that's part of the struggle with some of these tools. There are also a couple of these other tools that are out there that are on early access that we may well also address. But the thing I think, Casey, to start off with, like the thing that I always think about is even just in the earlier videos where a few years ago, I was like, wow, Roll20 is pretty amazing. It's kind of cool to have a virtual tabletop. Then you've got something that rolls dice. You've got something that's got the, if you're somebody that likes kind of encounters to be available to you, you've got something that's got the encounters there. If not, then isn't that rad? But then actually, that then sort of, to my mind, got a bit blown out the water by Foundry, and I thought, wow, Foundry VCT, how are you going to do better than this? And then you kind of gone up another level in this arms race. To the Talespire early access, and it's definitely worth pointing out this is early access. There's a lot of things Talespire doesn't do, but maybe let's start off with some of the things it does do. Now, I will just quickly run through things, and as you probably the easiest way of doing this, Anthony, is as you come across things. Well, sorry, it says Casey there because I just wrote Casey, so we're just going to go with Casey so it doesn't confuse folks. As we come across stuff, just yell out, shout out interesting things that, or little, what's the phrase I'm after? Little odd peculiarities you've come across, or really cool stuff, or anything else like that. So, as you come to the Talespire interface, it's pretty standard. You hit the escape button on this page, nothing happens. You begin. Now, ignoring all this wonderful stuff here, which is existing work, I will create a new campaign, and we will call this Talespire of Doom. Because why not?
Sure.
Cool. So this takes you to an interface. Now, just briefly, just touching on this interface, one of the things that is a little fun is when you want to delete one of your campaigns, you actually have to make it explicitly delete. It's kind of like it's a two-step system, which is quite nice. I think it asks you for a confirm as well. They haven't got to the point where nice to have little admin features are like their priority, and I'm glad because there's a lot of stuff that is. What they do have is pretty rad. So you hit the play button, and you start in GM mode. There's a bunch of tutorials that appear, a bunch of blocks, and some dice at the bottom. And it is a Unity-based sort of developed app. So those of you that are familiar with the Unity development framework will kind of see some of the things that are both great and a little frustrating at times. I think they've done a good job. My initial interactions with Talespire were also sort of met with a bit of frustration as well, and I think we can talk to some of that and how you get around that. Good morning, folks in the chat. Welcome, and we're talking about Talespire today. So the first thing I always do, invariably, is clean my screen, right? And I'm sure there is a button that allows you to clean your screen, but I don't know what it is. It's going to let you then see the fact that you are in a very grey limbo kind of place. And you can create a board. Now, by default, you have a first board, which is your unknown realm. And what are we going to do? So this is your work pad. Now, Casey, you've talked about this a few times before. There are, in my mind, sort of three main areas on the screen to think about. On the far right of the screen, good,
Mm-hmm.
good, mirror inversion, that works
Oh,
well.
wait, this way.
So, no, this side, yep, is a kind of height toggle,
Yeah.
right? There's a few other things in here as well. There's sort of like some, here's some creatures, some chat message stuff, which I don't think is particularly featureful right now for the way that it's used. There is a view that I think when they built it, that everybody would have their Talespire client and everyone would connect into it locally. I think a lot of us are using it as a virtual tabletop and a shared virtual tabletop, so people have eyes on the GM screen, the way that you would when you were around a table. So if a miniature's on the table, it's there, and if it's not, it's not. And so that is one of the things that's worth talking about, actually, which is that the hide and unhide mechanic is a little bit wanting. But on the right hand side, you have the ability to move up and down, and you can see everything is based around there being a flat plane which you're going to build on. So again, folks who've used anything Unity based will come across this. The other side is this green kind of lock icon, which is about the ability to set your reveal depth. We'll talk more about that when we have something built out.
Yeah, once you have the review depth, right, I think it's a lot easier for us to see when you actually have multi-tiered structures, especially. Yeah. That thing is that thing is a lifesaver when it comes to multi-tiered structures, because otherwise you'd have to kind of maneuver your way through it, which is
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think it's amazing. The first tip and trick I always do, because I always forget to do it, is regardless, if you're having a water level, that's fine,
yeah.
that's great. But the first thing I will do is I move the visible level off the floor. Because building on the floor is the first mistake you ever make in Talespire. And then you spend hours going, oh, how am I going to move everything? This is going to take forever. Because you actually realize that you've got to, and we'll talk about the technique of doing that, because once you've figured it out, it's fiddly, but you can do it. But there is a whole, you can't dig down further.
Yeah.
Like you can't say, oh, I'd like to expand this map vertically down. I'm sure they'll add it, but right now it doesn't exist. And so if you start off with, let's say, the most basic of things, and we're going to say, here is a very simple, 10 by 10 floor.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's great. And then you're like, well, I would like a cellar underneath this. That's it. You're game over, right? Like, as in, you now have to figure out how do I get this extra space. And so the thing you should do pretty much straight away is once you decide you're building something, you move your focus of view and you move your build layer up so that when you build... Did I do it? I didn't do it. I'm an idiot.
Oh, you did?
I did? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Oh, yeah, I did. Cool. Because then when you build as you... No, I didn't. I did not do it.
Oh, okay. So you need to control up.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thought I did that, but then I wasn't actually paying attention to my fingers. So good. Don't worry about that. It'll all get cut in the director's cut version. So as you can see now, there is now space underneath. So if I then wanted to say, well, actually, I want to have some steps that are then going to run from underneath here that I'm then going to maybe remove and create a trapdoor down to, you've got the space to do that. I'm not saying that we have to do that now, but I'm saying you've at least got the space to be able to do this. And that's the first thing. So create your false floor, right? Once you've done that. So that's what the height side is used for, to be able to determine that. And as Casey pointed out, the way that you work out from the base how you go up or down, or how you do a vertical movement, is using the control. You hold the control key down. You orient things in space using the middle click of the mouse, and or using the Alt facing.
Ramji. So for walls and all that, there are four cardinal spacings.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to like assets and all that, right there, you can actually fine tune it so that it hits at an angle. Whereas if you hit the mouse button, it will just hit the four cardinal directions. So that's something 100%. That you should remember.
Well, also, it's a great segue, because actually, if you look down at the bottom of the screen, we actually have a library of things that you can do, which are the assets of, well, what was it you called it? You said there were buildings, assets, and creatures, I think is
right.
the three divisions, right? So Building components, as you can see here, it's a searchable box. How you search it is tag based. It's kind of got some fuzzy matching logic in it, but it's a bit confusing. So if you type, let's say, wall, it's great, and it will attempt to predict you. But if you type, let's say you wanted to have a walkway, it's going to say, well, I don't have a word for walkway, and if I search for walkway, I'll get wall, right? And that's just the way that works.
There's a really interesting one which I found out the other day, which is that there is no asset for carpet, but there's an asset for rug.
Yes.
So I was searching for carpets all day, right? And I couldn't find it, and it kept snapping me to carpenter. But rug gave me all the access to all the rugs I needed.
There is also, as far as I can tell, and this is another little frustration, there is no global search. You can't type something and search for everything. It's not the end of the world again, but it's a minor thing. So just to complete the directions thing, so there you have this in the left, and then you can use the spacebar to bring this into your view or not. And then finally on the left-hand side over here is a kind of a more admin sort of board, right? This is where you can set things that are relevant to both the scene you're in, the players. It's sort of more of the campaign mode. I'm not entirely sure why they've entirely pulled it here, because where I tend to sit with all the time is this atmosphere settings, which is actually probably the most important thing. I would argue. We'll keep coming back to this, but the main area that I find the atmosphere settings important is in the terms of where your main light source comes from. Right? It is, you can set. There's a couple of things here. You can set what time of day it is, which is kind of rad, right? So let's just start with noon. So you can tell that just because the shadow's vertically overhead. But then you can also set an incident direction of where which direction your sun is going to travel. So let's start with this here, and you can see that as I move this, it travels in a pretty straight plane this way. But then I believe if I were to move it over here, you can see it moves this way, which is rad because you can indicate. I mean, unless you are the most comprehensive and perversive DMs, you tend to keep north, east, south, and west the same in your game setting because you don't tend to gain that much for it. But you can then actually signal very subconsciously what the direction of your world is by just the shadows, which is really nice, and we've done that in a few maps before. There's a question in chat, and while you have a quick look at that, Casey, and answer it, I'm also going to find where my chat overlay is and why we couldn't see it on screen and fix that problem.
So Chris, Carney Sideshow, I don't quite know what the orange level does. What I normally do with it is I'll just use the control and raise it up and down as I need it to. Do you normally use the 4 stats? No, because Talespire I think is really good as a virtual tabletop, but not necessarily as a game engine. So I usually run the stuff on D&D Beyond, and I think Carney Sideshow asked me that question during my stream on Talespire, I think just a couple of days back. What do I use to run the game, right? D&D Beyond is the thing I use to keep track of the encounters and all of those things. That's the disadvantage to Talespire as compared to things like Foundry and Roll20, where the game system, the D&D game system is kind of built in. Talespire is more like, this is Minecraft for DMs, and it allows you to build spectacular maps and allows you to display spectacular maps, but not necessarily allow you to run the game. I think that, I mean, Ramji, is that your experience with Talespire?
Yeah, no, I actually fully agree as well. I think that for playing the game and for providing a map interface and for creating a shared board, it's wonderful. For actually using it to manage the elements, the individual assets, monsters, everything else, it's great to move things around. The physics is wonderful. It's actually kind of difficult to use it as a replacement for a character sheet or something like that. And that's in part, I think, due to the limitations on the number of assets that exist in the game and the fact that you can't then save them and create multiple types of them. I suspect over time there will be there'll be more options to be able to create what's the phrase I'm after? Custom creatures. At which point, then being able to save them, give them hit points, other things like that. Maybe that will work well. I'm not sure I'd run a whole game in this just yet. This is very much more for allowing my players to understand what's happening, allowing, especially in the stream as well, allowing those who watch the stream to be able to get a really clear view of what's happening. So, briefly talking about other things that are important, the exposure value here is exactly as you'd expect. You want something dark and moody, do this. You want something here, do that. The post effects, I, for one, think that the post effects are very interesting and stylized. I have yet to find a good reason to use them. I like the isolated red. I think I'd love this as dark vision. But I think part of the problem is because we use it to stream with, getting rid of the colors of the game kind of actually makes the stream experience a bit less immersive and a bit less enjoyable. And part of the thing about Talespire that is so enjoyable for me is the fact that the colors are so rich and everything is so detailed.
Warm and Enchanted work really well. I was experimenting with it, right? Warm it really kind of makes it that gives that slight overexposure. Enchanted gives it a little kind of surreal effect. So those are those are my two normal go-to effects.
So let me quickly just grab something over here.
It's post effects, yeah.
So if I was to pretend I had one created a little earlier, let's say something like, because we're just from water over here.
You're building an ark. Oh, wow. Okay. Islands.
There you go, something like that. Okay, I mean, that's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but then let's flood some water, which is exactly what you get for this nice sort of water flooding thing. And now all of a sudden you've got this high water level, and then you also further have the ability to go underwater as necessary to then run your underwater game, which is one of the things that I think is amazing about this. Like, underwater games are some of the hardest games to run. Get any games with like 3 dimensions in are hard games to run. The ability to do this is just nuts, and I think it's for all of the stuff we've been saying about how yes there are limitations to this. What it gives you as a GM to be able to represent in an already representing 3D combat is very difficult.
Yeah.
And I think as we saw in the game with the rock that showed up, you have the especially with a bunch of nerds and nerd sort of adjacent folks there, you'll find it very quickly. Well, I'm not entirely sure. How does momentum play into this, and how far is that? And Talespire gives you some really, really useful tools to be able to help solve some of these problems. So we'll come on to these in a second, but let's say, for example, here, I've built this thing. I've got my little island set together. I had my little strange foundation that's now underwater. But the water effects are beautiful, and then as I go back to where we were here in the atmosphere, which can see what some of these post effects are like. That's where we came to. So you can still see that the thing is underwater just about, and now here. So here is the effect of going all the way to an exposure, a negative exposure. For those of you who are, pardon me, camera people, who are used to this sort of idea. I don't actually know if it's the proper stop system or not, but it is from a practical perspective. It is saying it's 3 EV, 3 exposure value down. That's 3 exposure value up. That is a high amount of range that you have available to you here. This is a dark and relatively contrasty picture, and it's moody. I mean, this provides a certain mood. If you can then move the sun across the sky, this is midday in this world. And yet you can see that there is a certain amount of darkness here. Now it does have some defaults. If we go back to our thing here, the default is this is the default sky. This is a kind of green swampy kind of environment, which again gives you exactly what you'd want: a shading in the sky, a certain green overlay on everything that creates a sort of jungle swamp kind of tomb of annihilation feeling, if you will. And the final mode here is it's darkness, everybody. Now, These aren't additive, frustratingly. So as soon as you go to darkness, when you put some light in this scene, you've then lost your green jungle, which is a bit of a shame. But I suspect as well, it will make sense that they will then tweak and modify this. Coming back to just our default sky, you also have this concept of fog. Fog is interesting. So fog starts with no fog at all. You can see as far as you can see. Yes, zoom out. Look, everybody, all the way to the horizon, right? And that's great and very interesting. So we'll come here, and you can see that you do end up with some interesting horizon effects as you move along, because obviously this is a simulation, not the real world. So stuff just appears at some arbitrary visual distance away. Fog helps solve this problem. Because now, okay, there is a little bit of occlusion over here. As you start moving further and further into it, you are able to add an arbitrary level of Ravenloft levels of fog here. Which, again, will help you as a DM a great deal. At this level over here, it's irritating level. This is kind of where, to me, I normally sit, which is the kind of default, which is useful enough to occlude stuff that is more than, out of scene. But practically a very helpful amount. Exposure the other way takes you to white. It's not the bleach. And so this is where Casey's point from a little earlier was saying you get this nice post effect of bleaching, which is a tonal cleaning. It's basically it's up at the high end, and it basically pushes the curve up, which means that you do get a bit more of a desert effect. I've not actually tried this with the greening slump. I don't know how that would look.
Oh, that looks like night vision almost.
Yeah, it looks sort of very Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, there we go. And then you have put it in green tones. Again, yeah, perfectly valid. This is, to me, what dark vision in the game looks like, which is it's isolated reds and is mostly black and white, which I think is pretty good. You do get a slider here that allows you to take it along the way as far as you want to go, which I think is, again, useful. Warm is fine. Again, exactly that. Warm tones basically applies a yellow filter. Frozen, similarly, a blue filter. Works. I think Frozen actually works pretty well. And last but not least is Casey's favorite, Enchanted,
Yes.
which appears to be a purple filter. But
so I slap on the light enchanted filter for kind of like extra planar effects, just to give that sense of like otherworldliness. That's what I do.
that's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Cool. So that covers off that. There are some other things on the left hand column here, but as we said a second ago, we don't really use them too much. One thing that is important is the units. So they say tiles. The first thing I'll do is I'll come here and I'll say feet, and I'll say it's 5 feet to a tile, and that solves a nice problem. And why is that important? Well, it means when I measure things, which I will do over here. I'm now measuring in D&D units of feet rather than tiles. You can still do it the same way. If you're doing 4th ed, you can just say 6 tiles away. If you are, depending on your players, but I quite like doing this way because also that way there is a whole how far away is it, and you don't have to do the conversion. It's 100 feet away. Everyone knows their spell. Eldritch Blast is 120 feet. It's 100 feet away. Problem solved. It does allow you to do some quite clever measuring things. You can go, how far is it if I went this way, and I wanted to go up that way, and now I've got a pretty cool way of measuring things. But yeah, that's it. You were looking like you were itching to say something.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just thinking of how Rick will be out of a job from doing all the trigonometry that he.
Bless.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. We won't have to have folks in our chat working out things with set squares and otherwise.
945. Stuff like that.
Carry the two. Amazing. So, right, where were we? Good. So I think that's kind of the basics. They do, interestingly enough, they do have a compass in this bottom left corner. I've not used it, and I probably should because I think it would help with the sort of the game orientation around things. But I've not actually thought about what the impact of that is. Because you already have the strangeness of the. Yeah, that's interesting. So I should be looking to. If I look towards the west, I would expect it to be dark, and then I would expect it to be. It's night. Ah, interesting. So I've made the sun rise in the west. That's good. Interesting. Well, the things you can do in this game. Right. So coming back to where we were just doing the brief intro of how you can then build stuff.
Hey, Rich is online. Sorry.
Nice. Um, so how are we doing stuff? So you can come back to the early point. You can spend some real time, and they have a lot of these different tiles, exhaustively building things, and I think that works well if you are of a certain time sort of profile. For me, I'm not of that time profile because I could sit here and probably spend hours and hours and hours building something and then realize, crap, I still haven't built the thing I needed. So, a whole bunch of folks, pretty smart people who like to do things and share things with other people, create a site, or create two sites indeed. One called Tales Tavern, and the other one is called Tales Bazaar. There's a few of these out there, but Tales Tavern and Tales Bazaar, I would argue, are the two that are bigger sort of ones. Is that fair, Casey?
Yep, those are the two ones. Do you want to take them through the one-page dungeon hack as well?
No. Oh, yes, that's actually yes. One page dungeon hack's a good one as well. Okay, so one page dungeon. There we go. I can't remember the site you used for it. So,
Send you the link.
yeah, I should have it stashed away as well somewhere. Sorry, folks, just 1 second. Yeah, if you've got the link, that'll be great.
Yeah, just let me send it over to you. Wait. Okay, sent you the one-page dungeon link.
Oh, one page dungeon I've got. It's the
the
it's
other
the
one.
converter.
The creators one. Okay, give me a moment.
Yeah, the one where you actually have to create the slab from it.
Yeah.
So while Case is doing that, let me address a useful thing. There's a concept in this game of things called slabs, and slabs are just lots of blocks of things brought together. And one of the mechanics that's really nice is that they're just cut and pastable. And the way it works in this is let me show you. If you were to say, I want to pick up this entire little top of the island that's here, and then I want to pick it up and I want to sort of take it over to use it somewhere else, you can draw a. Come here. I can draw. I'm not capable of actually drawing. Let's try again. There we go. You can draw a cube, and this cube is quite a clever cube because unlike my ability to think in 3 dimensions is limited, but this cube allows me to then manipulate those 3 dimensions pretty effectively. So I can then pull it up into whatever particular size or shape I need it to be in, and it handles my personal inability to handle perspective well. I can then grab that, and it is now, what we'd call a slab, right? What's very interesting is this particular slab. If I make it disappear over here, but then. Open up a notepad and put it here, and then I paste it. It is just a very, very, very long string of text.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I mention that is because all of these sites, in essence, share this very long string of text and allow you to incorporate it in the game. And so if I go somewhere and grab a very long string of text and then paste it in, then hey, bam, there I've got my slab. So there are 3 tools I think I want to show you. The first is, where did you pop that link, my friend? Is it in chat? Oh, yes. No. In Zoom chat. Perfect. Got it. So we're going to cover off, I want to say, 3 areas. The first is going to be Tales Tavern itself, which is quite nice. The second is Tales Bazaar, and we've got nothing to do with any of these sites, so it's not like it's there's any benefit. It's just what I personally use. I think what Casey uses as well. And the third thing is using One Page Dungeon as a way of generating a site. So I think we'll start with this one because it's probably the most immediately valuable to most people, right? Because the second one is for customization. So One Page Dungeon, if you don't know it, if you've never come across it before, is a really, really super resource. I only came across it 6 months ago, but it's changed my life. If you ever need to go, crap, I need something quickly, I need a map, I need someone to do something, it is a super procedurally generated dungeon. Very simple. They're rarely large and overly complex, but they are done by the same procedural generation folks that do the virtual cities, that do the virtual villages, that do the medieval map simulators, all that kind of stuff, and they're rad. And they're often done as competitions and other ways. And you can, in the way that with all of the stuff on this site, which is wataboo.itch.io, we'll put it in the doobly-doo below. When you go here, you can customize how you want it to look like and whether you want secret rooms and various other cool things like that. All of which is not particularly relevant to this function that we're talking about, which is that I want to be able to take this one-page generator function and then turn it into a slab, which is one of those strings of text. So what you do is you go here, you hit the J button to have a library of the blah blah blah. I'm just going to go off screen because I don't know what there is there. You then go and find that particular magic library of the Vampire Titan. So literally all I did there was, because I didn't know it was in that directory, I didn't want to stick my dirty washing out in the world. So I just went and choose file and then just went to that JSON sort of file. So I hit J, got the download, chose the file. Set the scale. By default, you just don't mess around with that, and then it hits convert. And then once you hit convert, it converts the slab to the board. Now, as I said a second ago, that is just this. That is just a whole bunch of just random garbage, or as we like to call it, just a long string. And that long string will allow me to, in the game, without doing anything else, you can just paste it, and now I have exactly that dungeon available. So if I wanted to have a sunken dungeon or somewhere or the other, I'm not going to because I want people to see it. But there we go. And you can see now that dungeon, and the proof of the pudding is in the eating, which is, here is this area here with a coffin, here is this square area, all these kind of things, is faithfully replicated here. Now, I don't believe that I've done assets or anything like that, but that saves you a lot of painful work because it's fun, but it's also not the most pleasurable thing if you want to quickly knot together a dungeon to then have to sit there and go, oh, I've got this corner piece and I need to get another corner piece, and oh, well, that piece is including that piece, and it can just be painful and take time. This will save you a lot of time, energy, and effort. So that, I think, is probably the first piece that is super useful, right? Again, using the water, you can move the water level up and down, which allows you to see the fact that there's all these other options below it. Is there anything else you want to talk about for the one-page dungeon stuff, Casey, that you do?
No. Do you maybe we'll talk a bit after we've gone through Tales Bazaar and Tales Tavern.
Yes, I think so. Because then the thing I like to do is use Tales Bazaar or use Tales Tavern to provide me additional things to composite with. Now, here's a key thing. There are two important concepts. One is, I guess three. One is the concept of a board. One is the concept of a slab, and one is the concept of an asset. And I think we're so far primarily talking about boards and slabs. So slabs are the chunks that you want to import into your board. The board is this thing, the overall world that you've built. And the way you access your boards on the left-hand side here, it says, yes, we will put it up to YouTube for folks asking in chat. The way that you access your board is that you will go to the left-hand side, you pick another board. So sometimes when you go to Tales Tavern or your Tales Bazaar, it will say, hey, what's the latest board? And you go over to a board and somebody's put a lot of work in to make something look beautiful. Let's go to the Hilltop Ruined Cavern and Cave. Have you published anything to Tell's Tavern or
Maybe after Thursday. I
Maybe after
may
Thursday.
want to put up my the Chinese martial art clan mountain massive overly done board up
I would
there.
like to use that. I saw that the other week. I'd like to use that.
Yeah.
Okay. So open Talespire. Here's your blah blah all this good stuff. Would you like to import this board? So this is slightly different. This is not the cut and paste method. This instead creates a care now cluster into my campaign. So far, it seems pretty reasonable. It doesn't change you away from your existing board, which is quite nice. But then you can now go and it will create this new world for you called care now cluster.
And you
Now
can.
it take.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it drops you out of build mode, and that's an important point. This little toggle box at the top that says build mode is one of the things that you will learn to go, yes, build mode. Sorry, Casey, what were you going to say?
Oh yeah, so I was just saying that it's totally okay for you to like load up full boards like this, right? What I did previously was that I found portions of this particular board useful, and I just chopped it up for parts to import to the rest of the map, and that's you do it via your kind of like three-dimensional cube. I just imported over to the map in the corner, put them as development assets, and just cut and paste and stitch them together.
I 100% agree. I think that's exactly the right way to do this because the other options available to you are will take forever. And
Right.
when a lot of people have shared their passion and love and energy to be able to create this kind of stuff, I think they're sharing it so that you can also use it. So it's like I don't imagine anybody would feel bad about this in any way. So as we take a look, one thing I am going to do is I'm just going to. Dun, 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 dun. Cool. That way, when I look, I can look this way. Excellent. So, as we're looking over here, and you can see that here's this world, and I just dropped it in. This is this entire board, but now that it's in the board, what we're looking at here is a large slab. So, all that happened when we said create a new board was it told Talespire, I want you to create a new board in this campaign, and then dump this slab in. So, if you wanted to instead, let's say, just take, as Casey was saying, turn build mode on. Just take. Oh. I always get the perspective on this wrong.
Yeah, the perspective thing is really tricky.
It's hard. It's the nature of things. So there you go. Now I've now taken that slab, barring the creatures that are in it, and I could now do multiples of them if I wanted.
Yeah.
And now I have two warring monasteries, dueling, if you will. And then you can raise your water level, and now we've got two islands here, and that's the nice thing. You can occlude and change how things work just simply in a very for DMs what would be a very reassuring way, which is borrowing things from lots of places and then putting it in front of your players like it's something for them to explore, which is really the point of this. The goal here is not to, at least for me, is that I'm personally not a great visual artist. I'm not trying to create a work of art. I'm trying to create something for my players to engage with and enjoy. And I think that's very true of you as well, Casey. Though I think some of your stuff borders on art. Let me find another thing that we can add. So this is to use Tales Tavern slightly differently. We'll find another slab. Let's say that we wanted to add some islands nearby. Okay, so we're gonna. This is a board, I believe. Yep, and so it'll add as a separate board. Pardon me. And again, keeping you here, you'd find that board. Hit spacebar. Go down to the left-hand side where Pirat Bay exists.
That's a gorgeous board, man. So,
this one?
Yeah.
Let me zoom up so I can see where this is. Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, so much detail. Oh my god.
This is gorgeous. Yeah. Look at that. This is amazing. And this is just from this height. Could you briefly touch on hide volumes or some advice in making sure the map is not fully spoiled for players? Casey?
So there isn't, as far as I can tell, there isn't something that allows you to block via line of sight. The only thing that I have been that may give you an indicator is that you'll have to log on with individual users and maybe there will be line of sight in there, because I've actually noticed that there are line of sight functions in the explore mode of this rather than the build mode. But if you're just one VM, it's going to run into the same problems that you have with VTT and Foundry with one
So
markup block.
there is a concept of a marker block, which you
Yeah.
can then do things with, right? But I don't. Again, I agree with you. I haven't really found a like marker blocks just let you change the scene dynamic from where you are.
Mm.
But there's very, very little ability in this game to actually screen things away from your players. So what I tend to do is, as DM, and if I'm in control of it, I will simply change my orientation view, and require my players to suspend disbelief. It's really just what it boils down to, and I think most players don't mind so far. Um, I again coming back to that point that Casey was making, coming back to the commentaries from earlier. I don't see this as being a multi-user environment at the moment.
Yeah.
At least not right now. I think this is a beautiful three-dimensional map environment and a ruler that allows us to be able to play a game, and somebody to say, well, how far away is that thing? And me to go, I don't actually know because I haven't really thought about it. But, well, from one end of this to the other is actually, well, it's about 300 feet. Okay, cool. So you could shoot a longbow from one end to the other, but it would be at disadvantage. Go ahead. And I think that's a lot of the questions that this game allows to answer, and it creates the sense of immersion and depth. This is a beautiful map. You're absolutely right, Casey.
Yeah.
But to be clear, one of the things that we do with beautiful maps is we will go here. I'd like this pirate ship in my other map, please. So this is exactly what Casey's talking
Exactly
about,
what
which
I'm
is
talking about. Yeah.
here's my build mode. I would like this pirate ship here. I'm going to go here because of the three-dimension thing. There we go.
Okay. I have a new project now. I'm gonna see if I can convert that pirate ship into a sampan.
Oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's come up here. Let's get a bit higher. Page up and page down allow you to move up and down laterally, which is a useful feature. It is WASD in general, or your mouse to be able to move as you need to. As you can see, I just clipped out the back of the boat. Okay, but I got the boat. Hey, everybody, I got the boat. So now, as we said before, that is in my copy buffer. So that literally is a, to take a little notebook to show you. It's just a long string of text. And so as we will then go back, sorry, I want to paste that so it's there. Cool. As we go back to my other world of, I think it was Cairnau Cluster. So in Cairnau Cluster, as we say, well, what do we need to have if we have a pirate ship advancing on us? So here we go. Ooh, come back. Okay, as you can see there is the pirate boat. And to come back to what Casey was saying earlier, I can orient it in cardinal directions, or I believe I can orient it using, no I can't.
No, if it's a slab, you can only do it cardinal.
Slabs can only be oriented in a cardinal direction. So
Assets can be,
basically,
yeah.
it can only be northeast, southwest.
Yeah.
Okay, and there we go. And now you have a pirate ship that is, or a ship that is now sailing away
Yeah.
from these islands, which is pretty rad. That took about 6 minutes, probably less. And there are an incredible array of these things on this site. A lot of them people are building in the community for being related to some of the published material, some of the existing or traditional games, Ravenloft, Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Waterdeep Dragon Heist particularly is a very popular one. Others are people just creating modules and things that are going to be useful elsewhere. These are all boards. I keep clicking boards. Let me go to slabs. Yes, just to show you how slabs work again. You hit copy code. If you want to display the code, you can see it here. Copy code. And then let's say I wanted to have this prism here. Why would it be submerged? Well, maybe
It's a
got
tidal
submerged.
prism.
Indeed. Indeed. Cool. And that is the core of how you set this stuff up, and certainly the I set this stuff up. I don't think. Oh yes, perhaps the most important thing in some ways, which is the things your players will interact with. So there are, as we said earlier, there are these building components, which you may want to just, let's say, oh yes, now I'd like to add a bit of fencing here. Etc. So you can actually manipulate that, not particularly well in this case. Or you might want to start adding things that make sense in your game. So I want to start populating the world with, I don't know, a couple of pumpkins enjoying a fire, or actually it makes sense that there's a ladder down to this, pardon me, down to this area down here because it's their swimming ladder. It's what they like to swim down. Super. There we go. Now you're able to start adding and augmenting this. Now, obviously, I'm doing this trivially, but later on, and more importantly, when you're building your game, you're not going to do this trivially. You'll do this sort of seriously. These effects and artifacts are all effects and artifacts that will be affected by by night and day. So the moon is out. That's what it looks like. The moon is very small, and now you have a very dark sort of place where, yes, you can see these are some fires that have been set in this area, but you can't really see the ship. You can see the moon, and it changes the tone of your game dramatically. You can see the pumpkins set by their fire. Going back to midday because there is a DM can see mode. I don't use it. I just make everything midday and fuck around with it. In parks, I just enjoy watching the sun go across the world. It's a very, very pretty effect. The final thing to talk about is populating your world with things. So this is something I struggle with a little bit, which is when you're in this building DM mode, you can't actually the creatures that you put in the world, you can't see what they look like.
Yeah.
And it's a bit annoying because you kind of want to because you're creating the scene, right? But I'm sure there's a logical reason why. So you can see the famous climbing pigs of the monastery. And then, of course, you have a group of, creatures. If you use the Alt key, you can rotate them. If you use the Control key, you can change their height and size. If they're flying, you can set them so they have a fly toggle, which is super nice because then when you use the Control key, they will remain in that space. The physics doesn't affect them, and they then are able to, see things. And one of the really nice things about this is because you can say, well, I don't know if this person would see you or not, you can actually genuinely hit the line of sight and vision of something, which is pretty cool, right? Because it means when players are stealthy and being stealthy, the whole conversation of, well, where are you going to hide? It's like, oh, well, I want to try and hide behind those bushes over there.
Yeah.
Right? And that then becomes a much more interactive discussion than in Theatre of the Mind, where you say, well, I'd like to hide. And, oh, where would you like to hide? It's like, well, are there any bushes nearby? There are. And then in my head, I'm like, well, I don't know whether or not this person would be able to see them or not. And certainly my players have no concept of it at all. And then it becomes a very much more statistical thing and much less of a descriptive thing. And I think that this is, for me, the primary purpose of Talespire is that it adds verisimilitude to the world. Cool. There are a relatively restricted set of models that are available here. One of the things that is a little annoying, and I'm pretty sure you can do something about it, but only to a limited extent, is you can, for example, using the GM tools, you can increase the size of a model. So that's pretty rad. But what you can't do is it's not done using a. Come here. Wait. This is one of the things that is frustrating. It's like, I've got a thing, I'm stuck, I can't move it, it's not easy for me to bring it up and down. How do I restore something to its last position? Fortunately, Control Z generally works. Practically.
Oh, please stop.
Ooh.
Sorry, my son just walked into my room.
Oh, hello. It is a frustration. Casey, I don't know if you've got any useful tips about when things get dropped underneath the board or similarly.
So the control key is basically the phasing key. So if you want to retrieve a mini, right, control basically allows you to phase through terrain. So that's basically what I use to kind of get it. So apart from it moving up and down, right, you can kind of have it move to the side. Or shift is the teleport.
Shift is the one.
The shift is the teleport.
Shift is the one that allows you to move
Yeah.
sort of through things. And so, if we find, well, let's see if we can still find our useful friend if he's disappeared somewhere.
So there are interesting ways you can exploit the collision physics for figurines, right? Like
Right.
one of the things I was experimenting in the map with, and this is one of the go back and play with it, right? Is that you can have actually have floating assets and then have um, figurines step on those assets like it's a sky ladder kind of thing. So you don't have to fly them around either. I can show it to you on one of these days, but it's there are interesting ways to exploit the collision physics of terrain versus figurines. What
So, just to briefly demonstrate what the shift button does with this large, giant, angry bear. If I wanted to move him, I have to move him square by square here. But as a GM, you can grab hold of it, hold down the shift key, and then you actually can place this wherever you want to place it, as long as you can manage the joy of the optics and figure out where it'll be, and it will massively appear. And as it does so, because it's a 3 square creature, you'll see the screen will shake in nice and enjoyable way, which is one of the lovely things about the game. But sorry, you were saying, Case.
yeah, sorry. No, yes. Anyway, I was just ranting about like there was one particular map where I actually built a path flying up into the sky made of nothing but pebbles to kind of get away from all of these tiles. Um, so that there are interesting ways to exploit this, but as of right now, it's really very much an annoyance because you have even like for example, even if you have to go into the door unless you press shift in this particular house, right? You wouldn't be able to enter unless you actually manually open the door.
Yes.
That was really,
Yes.
yeah. It's one of
Just
the
to briefly show the thing we mentioned earlier, which is worth mentioning, is the the reveal layer. And so, as you see here, there is nothing included. You can't see in these buildings. I could probably move into these buildings, but the clipping on that can be quite annoying. So let me show you what I mean. So you appear to this building. Oh, look, I'm looking inside, and now I've got to reorient my way to horizontal, and like looking inside them is difficult, right? So one of the nice things is that you can see there's this green diamond in the top right hand corner. This green diamond in the top right hand corner allows you to say at what point does the actual world start peeling away, so you can look inside buildings. So even from this height here now, like okay, if I'm up here, I can see the rest of the world. But when my view goes below this line, now I look inside the house. And so this is a nice way of handling some of the reveal, right? I suspect you could actually put a layer on the world here, just a vertical kind of like, oh, sorry, a horizontal, flat plane, and use that as a way of managing the reveal for your players. Though it's again a bit more work than think is worth it in some ways. So that's where the effect of the green thing is. Are there any other things about Talespire that we want to cover off? Oh, physics and dice rolling. This is nice. You're never going to use it, but it's super nice.
I use it from time to time.
It's
It's entertaining.
cute.
Yeah. Oh, the figurine emotes. Have you figured out how to do the attacks on the figurines yet?
The which, sorry?
The attacks. Yeah, yeah. You can do the. So if you click this, right, anything that you click is the active item. But if you right click the subsequent one, right, yeah, and you click on attack, it will have the bear attack that thing. And if you can also magic missile is the only other emote that's available. So it's like
That's so cool. I hadn't noticed that before. That is awesome.
yeah, it's really fun. As you can have
Uh,
a torch bearing bear as well if you so choose.
that is really cute. One of the things that I don't like is that when you do hit this radial menu, there are so many options here, and the screen is super cluttered. I think that one of the F keys, nope, there is an F key I think that allows you to clean everything and make everything disappear, but I can't find it. Let me see if it's in the. Oh, hey, how do you unhide creatures, Casey? Have you come across that?
So you need to hit tab when you hide it, right? This is an explore view. So if you just take just hide a random mini,
Sure.
yeah,
Hide that one.
you hit tab,
Hide that. Ah, I
will come up.
see. And
That's
then
the
that's where
GM
you
view.
unhide. Ah, right. Okay, so that's fair. Hmm. Yeah, it's one of the things that is a little difficult, I suspect, is you can't share the GM view is a representation of the GM mind, right? And so you can't share the GM mind and the player mind at the same time. And one of the differences is that in Foundry or another VTT, you can run two browsers, and you can show one browser to your players, and you can run one browser for yourself that's got your GM notes and everything on there. I think it would be in Talespire. The way I would be thinking about that is that you would really need two screens, right? One of which has got a very simple, maybe even just a top-down two-dimensional view of your world, and it will allow you to reveal and hide things. Because I think that's part of the like if I could tag something as hey, this is a hidden object. Having the ability to make that thing have a name and then unhide it without my players seeing me do it, I think is an important feature as a DM that I would need. I do like the way the measurement works. As I said before, measurement is super cool. It needs a few more options, but it does really answer the question of where I put my fireball. Because if a player says, "Well, yeah, okay," based on that, and they go, "How far is it?" and you measure, and you say, "Well, for me to measure, it's from me. I'm going to cast fireball at this bear," and it's like, "Well, for me to the bear is 44 feet." And you're like, "Great, where are you going to put your fireball? Everything's pretty much in range of you." And they're like, "Well, I want to put it somewhere where I don't hit." Like players in a Theatre of the Mind game feel that their characters are immeasurably precise. I would like it just so the flames lick in front of my other
Yeah,
PC's face, but they don't do any damage. You're there going, cool. Literally point on the screen where you want to put it. You can see it's 43 feet away. You're reasonably intelligent. They say, well, I want to put it near this tree over here. And then you can choose to make that measurement. Let's go with the fireball. That tree there, cool. Well, a fireball is a 20-foot radius, or 40, is it 30 feet radius? I can't remember.
I think it's 30 feet.
30 feet radius. There we go. Boom. Cool. Well, you picked well because now you've blown out the side of this building, and it's really nice to be able to see that, like visually, like players get it and they understand it, and then it creates a real dimensionality, which you don't like if you just do the circle template. You don't quite get it. You get the same thing here with a cone. You can do cone measurements, which is pretty rad. It's not working for me because that's because it's there. So I moved it from there to there. Cool. So now I have a cone, and I want to say my cone is 60, 70, 80, 90, 120 feet long. And now you can again start to see what the impact of your choices are. And I even saw this happen in the game the other day, which is where Barra threw a fireball, but actually blew a tree out. And as a DM, it's really useful because you're then going, cool, well, your fireball's done a lot more than just actually blown something up. If I do cone of cold across here, everything that is potentially not occluded by that cliff face will be affected by that cone of cold, right? And it's a thing to know. So I really think that's it's a superb thing. I would like to see a little bit more usability in the way that the measuring works here, and I'd like to be able to have some form of cool. Well, I'm going to measure something and I want it to stay on screen. You can, for example, do multi-measurement, which is great. But then I'd like to be able to have that measurement stay there or to stay sticky for a little bit. So players kind of know what they've committed to as part of their move, for example. I'm going to move here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. How far is it? They've kind of thought their way through it. Great, excellent. Then I'd like it to be there until I tell it to go away again, which I think it is not, unfortunately, the way that works. Um, that's rulers. I've not used Cutbox before. I don't even know what that is. Casey, do you know what that is?
No, never used it.
Cool. Well, it's good to know. The other one that I think I'd like to have, but I've never. I'm sure I can figure this out. What are these black boxes across the bottom?
Oh, those are supposed to be shortcut keys, but again,
But they're not there yet.
I never use them because I never used an asset often enough to
So I have, and I hit this favorites button here,
your favorite.
but I never actually get it. Like I would like my PCs to be here because quite often I'll lose models or whatever, or I need to bring it up, or Barra turns into like Barra's glorious form or whatever it is, and I'd like to be able to like have that to hand. But I've never been able to figure that out, and I'm sure it's pretty straightforward once I
So your
actually do it.
favorites is over at the bottom right hand corner. That's where the star is, and you pull up just a filter of all the things that you start up.
Right. So how do I get? But how do I get it into here? Is my question.
I again, sorry, I haven't used that
No,
one
no,
yet.
no, no, no. Sorry. That was a. It was rhetorical. Sorry.
No worries.
Uh, let's see. Is there some magical thing here? No, doesn't appear to be. Okay. All right. Well, it is what it is. Cool. I think that's sort of covered off the basics of it. So let's have a look in chat and see what people are saying. Do we feel that the cone isn't as wide as it should be? I actually think you could probably tweak that. Let me have a look. See. Yes, you can tweak the
Decide
the angle of the cone. So if you wanted to have a, let's say you wanted to have a 60-degree cone. There you go, a 57-degree cone because I can't just do 60-degree cone. There you go, have as big a cone as you like, which is pretty rad. That is again through the control key. The control and alt keys are used a lot as modifiers. But there we go. Have a landing beacon for the ship. It's hard to not gush about this, and so although it may sound like being critical, this is 100% an amazing tool. It is, I would say, definitely transformed the way I've been thinking about things. I've been flirting with it for a long time. We finally got it onto stream a few weeks ago. Casey's had it on the stream for quite a while, and I think it's going to go from strength to strength as the game gets more and more, as the product gets more and more evolved. They are just at the point, I think, of next few months being able to do self-import of models, which will be great. I think I'd love to see a booming model asset community in the way that there is also this wonderful set of things in Tales Tavern and in Tales Bazaar, and more and more generators and stuff will appear. I imagine at some point there will genuinely be a procedurally generated, click this button, generate a board, and it will just appear based on it's the next step beyond what the one page dungeon stuff does. So it'll actually just procedurally generate your one page dungeon with all the things inside it that you would want to be able to get going, which is rad because the ability to just like go, cool, what are we playing tonight? It's a one shot. Let me just go get a monster of the week type dungeon, and you've got this thing there. It's amazing. There are some performance limits to this game. Generally, this is a pretty straightforward and small board. At the point that it gets double this size, starts getting a little clunky. At the point that it gets 4 times the size, starts getting very clunky. When you are running out of space, when you're fully zoomed out, expect the thing to crash. I have had crashes in this game. They are nowhere near as many as I would expect for a early access game of this complexity, and I think that's part of the reason why they are restricting things like the assets that are available and various other things, because otherwise you can end up with some really, really buggy effects. Yeah. Thanks for the follow, Troka. Casey, would you like to comment or talk about anything else?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the talk around Talespire has been around the limitations of Talespire that it can't occlude and all that, right? But the way I like to look at Talespire is that it actually facilitates a whole different style of running a game. Like one of the things I was again, kind of chatting with Chris about as well, right, is it allows you to do things like perspective puzzles where you can only see a certain scene if you happen to be walking down in a certain way, or it can allow you to do light based light-based scenario interactions or shadow-based scenario interactions, which you actually would be, which actually would be really difficult to do even narratively. So all this is really just to facilitate just a whole new way of doing it. And I think that one of the things that I'm personally doing right now is trying to come to terms with, oh, what does this enable me to do? What does this allow me to do? What does this allow me to do? Rather than say, it's not Foundry. Yeah, I fully acknowledge it's not Foundry, but it is something else. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a critical point, right? This is not a VTT,
Yeah.
right? It's just not, right? It's what it is it is a super involved, engaged 3D map.
Yeah. Exactly.
And because it's a 3D map, you can then put things on that 3D map, but you're limited again by what you can put on it. But as that 3D environment, to Casey's point, it means that people can like stick their heads around and poke into the diagram and go, oh, well, what's this thing here, and how does that work, and can I come around the back of the place or whatever, which is allows you to magnify your players' imaginations. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
It's a catalyst rather than do they have vision cones? In terms of where your player would be, no, they do not. From a practical perspective, again, the way I've run this before and the way I do this is I will drop down to my player's eye level and I'll say something like, well, this is kind of what you can see from where you are.
The donkey.
Yeah, that's right. This is my player's donkey. And so if they are like, well, can I climb up somewhere to see it? It's like, cool, yes, you can climb up here, and this is what you can see from here. And I think this is where then you start getting into the great, there's a big bear thing there. There are always going to be imperfections, I think, with this game, but would be nice if they can lock in so they can see something behind, can't see something behind a wall. So the assumption with this game, which I think Casey mentioned earlier, is that it's predicated around the original idea of each of the players will have a client and the DM will have a client.
Yeah.
What we've been talking about is we're not using it that way. We're using it as a shared DM view. And I think that that's possibly a restriction, right? Because in the shared DM view, the things that you don't want the players to see are unfortunately, very visible. Even if you pop into DM mode and say, well, I want to hide this thing or otherwise, right? The reality is the player sees you popping into DM mode to do it. So some of the mystery is gone, right? But conversely, with a player-oriented client or an observer mode, which is what I'd love to see. I would love to see a observer mode of some sort, the way that you have it with Foundry or otherwise, that would be able to be controlled either by the DM or controlled by one of the players or whatever, so they can look around and see things to their heart's content, but you as the DM can hide away what's visible or not. Coming back to Casey's point, though, these are, wouldn't it be amazing if, type of things, right?
Yeah.
And it's not to take away the fact that, this is pretty amazing. Just to come back, because I still am just always just blown away from it, right? There's the amount of work that people have put in this community, and just how beautiful these things are. I'm just going to go over here and just say, let's talk about some of these things that are liked, and you can just see that someone built a full-size city.
Sorry about that. That was my daughter coming in to figure out what
Magic.
Daddy's doing.
A magic daughter. I was like, what's a magic daughter?
No, she just came in and she poked her head in and broke the fourth wall. I'm so sorry.
It's not even a thing. So amazing. So this is someone who has built faithfully Bryn Shander from the.
Oh, holy!
Look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, and what is crazy about this is, let me just drop this level down thing here. Right? What's crazy about this is, this person has done this, and then they've done the insides. Let me bring this down. So you can take a peek inside.
Yeah, you need
Further.
peel. Oh my goodness.
Every single building.
Oh, that's really impressive, man.
Every single building has got detail in it. Now, as a storyteller, that's just amazing. That's just like, it's just food and drink for
Yeah.
days.
I mean, you could adventure here for like level 1 to 20 and you wouldn't run out of detail, man.
100%.
Yeah.
100% is genuinely, this is what I'm saying, like the community itself, you download these for free, you have the base software, it costs, whatever it is, 15, $30, whatever it is, I can't genuinely remember right now, but yeah, you just go to talespire.com, you open it as a board, or if it's an asset, it's an asset. So I'm just going to quickly just run through a few of the different boards here, just to show how amazing this community is, in fairness, because this community is rad. So we'll just pick up another one here. There's another one called the Adventure Beggins. Well, no one said that the community could spell. They just thought it was amazing. That's all. Let's see. Starting village. Coming back to that point Khayce was making. This could be your level 1 starting village. Well, let's take a look. Bring this up here.
Oh, wow.
Have a look at that. This is basically a zone for an MMO. This is absolutely fucking nuts. Ruined keep.
Yeah, they can adventure here for like days and weeks and months and it would still be like not exhausted, right? Yeah. What I like about Talespire is that I've used a lot of these maps as inspiration for adventures, and just being able to look at it and see, and then you have the ideas spark off, and then you say, yeah, you know what, I can use this map for this, and build the adventure around the map, and that's again a whole different level of facilitation than you would get from, say, VTT and
100%.
your battle maps. So
Yes.
it's just a whole different thing, man. Just a whole different thing.
Let's throw a bit of fog in.
Court of
Change it to the evening.
And then if some witch lays a curse, it becomes enchanted, right? That's
Okay. And then let's go over here, turn off build mode, zoom out again.
it gets swallowed up into Ravenloft. There you go.
There we go. Have some Ravenloft magic. And now all of a sudden, your ranger to come to that earlier point becomes super important. Because you're like, well, where the fuck am I?
Yeah.
And you can take this to ridiculous if you need to. So, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And the level and breadth of capability. Any Underdark? Yeah, I used one the other day in one of our games. Coming back to this.
Was that an Underdark map?
It was. It wasn't an Underdark game. It was the inside of of the still itself. But what I did was I found there's a map, I believe, of Mantol Dereth from the Forgotten Realms. Let me see if I can find it. Yep, there it is.
Oh.
And some amazing person has modelled Mantol Dereth.
Of course they have, right?
And so there we go.
Oh, we were talking just now about background music as well, right, Ramji? Can play. There's some sample tunes in here as well. It's quite well done for mood music, right? Again, it's not Foundry VTT. We were just talking about being able to use your own MP3s and stuff like that. But there is good music in here. Very tone setting as well. So, oh my goodness.
Look at that.
Yeah. This looks like the Baldur's Gate. Sorry to spoil, but it's like the Baldur's Gate 3 Underdark map almost by itself.
I imagine that there's some level of homage, if you will, that's inside that. So I actually think this is one of those few examples where if you turn the isolated red up, like for creatures with dark vision, this is amazing because this is what that dark vision shows you.
Wow.
Which is just rad. It's absolutely I mean, as much as I don't like the movie, it's like 300 the movie.
It's bonkers, man. Whoa. And then you can have that perspective map of your players just walking through the streets and not knowing whether they're going to get ganked around the next corner.
It's so rad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's 4 clicks to get there.
Yeah, and that way you as a dungeon master, right, you can just focus on running the game, rather than having to build the thing. Although, building is its own pleasure, as I've discovered.
And I think 100%. I think it gives you the space to, yeah, exactly. It gives you the space to 100% enjoy running the game and not be like, oh crap, crap, crap. But also, like I got a bunch of Dwarven Forge stuff. I genuinely have spent the money. I've got a bunch of Dwarven Forge stuff, and it takes so long to build the map that I don't care what my players are doing. We're playing in that map, and so conversely you can get, there is so much variety and variation that's available to you here that if your players go off in a different direction, you don't have to, like, there's no need to sandbox anything anymore. Like, you don't have to just like force your players to do anything. You can just grab but they go, oh, they're going into this village. Okay, cool, what's in this village? Well, we're back to the this sort of area over here, and they come across a small island, and there's somebody with a strange hut on this island. That's never happened before, has it? And now, for whatever reason, Auntie Agatha's hut, it's just there, dearie. How amazing is that? You drop the thing here so you can sit inside it.
This is a bonkers. It's just wonderful. It's just an absolute wonderful tool to really just give you visualization of all the stuff that you imagine. It cuts down a lot of work in trying to narrate the scene and all that. It's like, here, there's a hut with 3 legs right here. Just take a look at it.
Taroko asks, do you need each player to buy the software? And so, just to kind of reiterate what Casey and I were saying earlier, the way we use this is no, because we both stream, but also when we play with our players, we will share the GM view using Zoom or using the stream or whatever. I think the original intention from the folks at Talespire is that yes, if you're playing this with 4 folks, they would have at the very minimum, you would have somebody with a player view that they controlled that would see the player things, and somebody with a GM view. And you could do that with a player view that you then shared around. And I think that's probably the minimum, I would say. You need a player view and a GM view. The mechanism exists within Talespire to do this. I'm not entirely convinced that the way they've built this on Steam, which is where you have the same product do both things, makes sense. I think that it would be good if there were 2 apps, one of which was the player view app, one of which was the GM building app. In part because then, as a GM that then streams, I can run both apps at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's sort of the my personal need. But yeah. Casey, you want to say something?
No, I think that as a tool for running a game, it's still not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
And because they built it first as a modeler and second as a game tool.
Yes.
So,
and I'm glad they did, actually.
Yeah, I'm glad they did as well, because I personally like running the game. So there is a personal element to that. But I think that this really fills a very nice niche in between the VTTs and Minecraft, basically. And
yes.
this would allow you to basically leverage on the things that are traditionally strong. When you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you expect kind of narrative control to be in the GM, and maybe some of the tools have already been duplicated elsewhere, right? Like D&D Beyond, which everyone uses, or well, a lot of people use, right? So kind of like D&D Beyond plus Talespire is my ideal running platform, and I'm not overly concerned about sightlines, mostly because I think most of the people I tend to play with tend to be like 10, 20-year veterans, and while they occasionally try to sneak a bit of OOC information, I'm staring at certain people right now, in, uh, they generally are quite disciplined about it. So the sideline issue does not affect me as much as it affects, I think, people who might have taken up the hobby more recently. I think, Ramji. I think
I fully agree. I think there is a point at which, as a player, you learn that polluting the things you should know and things you don't know actually spoils your fun.
yeah.
And until then, you're right, that may exist, but I think it adds unnecessary complexity in some ways to do a proper fog of war. I do it in a top down tape in a top down VTT, because one, it's easy to do wall occlusion, and two, actually it's kind of critical there,
Yep.
because you don't control the angle and perspective of view. Here, I actually think that, you know what, if I was here and I could see a little bit of a red dragon kind of hiding around the back there,
Yeah.
it's probably reasonable that a player with a perception of 22 could see, the spore of a dragon or something nearby. So I think there's elements there of, I would like there to be a cleaner way of a DM to be able to hide and add things, but beyond that, I'm stunned. And again, like I said, oh look, 3 seconds and I have a jungle tavern. Like it's just off the chain. So I'm going to spend a few minutes here while we're just sort of chatting and looking in chat. Ricardian says that the player app could be feature light and doesn't eat too much resources. I think that is a thing. It is worth pointing out that I am running this on a beefy graphics card. Right, like this is a 3070 or something like that. It is a nice new computer with a beefy graphics card that is doing a great job of working through this. I do not feel that the same would be true if I used it on my 6-year-old NVIDIA GTX 970 or whatever.
Well, I'm running on a pretty dated engine as well. My platform is pretty dated, and it still runs okay. The problem happens initially, as in when during the load up, it was kind of like you can kind of see the program trying to find its brains, because it's going through the schooling and all of that. But once it comes down to the stream, it's still pretty smooth. I'm running like a 10-year-old graphics card or something like that, and it still runs fine. So
Well, that's pretty rad.
that's pretty okay. It's not that system intensive. It's not nearly as system intensive as you would think it would be. Yeah.
Let's see what the next one is.
Yeah, what I really like to see is D&D Beyond integration at some point in time. Then that would be like, oh, then that's the end game already. I literally don't need anything else. Yeah, so I totally get that. One, just to add what Taroka has said, right? It models most spells well, but there's one particular measurement that it doesn't track, which is Q.
Which is what?
Q.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't. I know wish it did. Yeah.
And I only remember that because I was watching Monday's stream.
That's actually a great point. I wonder what would happen if I did a 90-degree.
It's kind of a tetrahedron with a curved side, quartile of a sphere almost.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
Yeah, but I'm assuming that you can kind of duplicate the effect of it using the ruler measurement anyway. Right?
Yes, you can. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's perhaps part of the point, right? Is that you go there. Though the ruler measurement doesn't handle z-axis, I don't think.
Yeah, it can kind of. It handles 3 dimensions. So
it handles 3 dimensions, but you can't say go vertically up.
90 degrees, yeah. It doesn't you can't lock it into 90 degrees and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but even so, I mean, it's still these are minor things. I just look at this amazing thing.
So for those of you who are watching, you've watched the adventure for the next like 7 streams already, at least on my end. Just kidding.
Oh, I'm not kidding. You're kidding me? If I'd seen this before the
oh yeah,
the Temple of Agatha thing, I'd have been like, "This is the Temple of Agatha. What are you talking about? It may still become the Temple of Agatha."
Yeah, after it gets rebuilt and
Yeah, exactly. The
Spoilers.
the retcon. Look at that.
Yeah. There is so much of it that is pretty. Oh, we've got a raid.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much for the raid, nice people. We're talking about Talespire. We're taking a sort of look into what just some of the cool work that's been done by the community inside the game itself, as well as we did a little bit of an intro earlier. And yeah, so welcome and thank you very much for stopping by. We do a whole bunch of stuff. Casey has a stream where he uses Talespire. I have a stream where I use Talespire on Monday nights. And yeah, it is amazing. And I think it's one of those ones where genuinely think it's game changing. There are a few other things that. What is this? Like, it is cut and pastable, right? You can literally go, I just want to.
Oh,
wow.
man.
Look at that. That's rad.
Okay, time to send my PCs off to this Silk Road now. You know I can do this now.
And I could even probably just
look at the amount of detail in there, man. It's like the palisade, the ditch.
That is one thing that while we're talking about things that it doesn't quite have. I mean, the detail is amazing. Is I have no way of filling water into a gap.
Yeah, that's true.
I only have an overall global. I suspect that's something they'll fix at some point. But it's something when you're thinking about as you build your game out, you need to create artificial height and depth in order to be able to handle the fact there's only a single layer toggle. Do the gates open is the question. I bet they do. Let's go in out of build mode and into. No, it's not. It's a palisade wall. Oh no, it is. Look at that! Look at that! Oh, you could spend hours doing this. This is amazing. Again, someone has just put a remarkable amount of work into this.
So word of caution, right? Anyone who gets this piece of software and starts building maps, right? It is very easy to get obsessed with starting to build out and fleshing out the maps. I've lost like much productivity to this already. It's just absolutely amazing.
Full-size snowy port city based on Targos. We can't say no to that. Let's see what Petson's done there. And again, so it's importing a board, not a slab.
Yeah, this Talespire is just absolutely bonkers. I just love it so much. Helm's Deep. I'm sure somebody has done Helm's Deep. And in fact, one of the holy. Oh, say.
Lord fuck a duck. What is this?
That's an entire port city right there, complete with like sailing. And you just got it up.
This is
got this up
Petson.
and running in 4 seconds flat, right?
Holy shit, Petson, you're amazing. This is or P. Edson or whatever your name is. You amazing giant fool of a human being. This is wonderful. It's the same person that did the full size city. This person is working through the Icewind Dale stuff. They did Kelvin's Cairn as well. But before, let's admire their work for a second here because it is absolutely rad.
Man. And you notice how slowly the Talespire is rendering it right now. It's slow because that's the amount of detail that has gone into it. But everything is rendered. You don't see any real stutter. But yeah, holy.
This is beyond. Like how do you make this?
The amount of detail that goes into a single ship in here, right, is hours of work, you know. Like much less the entire city. And some of the stuff you can't just just cut and paste. You can cut and paste it, but you know, at some point in time, right, the tiles are going to start interfering with each other. So the amount of like just getting the assets together and cleaning it up and decorating the insides, it's what like the man must have hands like a surgeon, man.
Oh my god.
Okay, that's a simple asset, right? Just four statues, but look at the way he's placed it.
It's just amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. Wow. Blown my mind. I mean, I was impressed with this before, but this is like taking it up to another level.
Yeah.
This is like, uh, is this Miles to a stream thing or is it otherwise? I think it's actually, let me bring up the task manager and I'll show you the state of what's going on. I mean, we do run more than a few things in this computer, but even so, I suspect it is. Uh,
Yeah, I suspect it's just the size of this particular map.
yeah, I think it's 100% the size of this map.
Hey, how many assets do you have in here, man? Holy crap.
It's amazing. So yeah, it's definitely pushing the GPU. I mean, this is a pretty decent computer, and
Yeah.
it's putting the GPU. So, but that's again.
I like the fact
the
that
attention to detail is amazing.
Talespire allows you to do the down and dirty, like 1 minute dungeon stuff really well. It also allows you to like take assets that people have spent hours and days putting together. Just look at this. Just look at this. You just absolutely cannot do this on VTT. You just can't. Right? You can't send a sense of grandeur and scale like this.
And we just went to nighttime, and it's just changed the scene entirely.
Yeah. But maybe put up the fog, man, to
Sure.
the morning fog. There you go.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Negative Charisma. That's thank you very much for the raid, and thanks for stopping by. I've got to say this is just mind blowing, and we're just going to do a bit more of this. We're just going to wander through and look for a few more of these just works of art. I want to call these things because they are. Maybe that's what we should do, Casey. Just once a week, we get together and we just look up, see all the new slabs, and do reviews of them because these things are absolutely not beautiful.
Yeah, they're nuts, man.
What was the one I just did? Kelvin's Cairn. Where was that? Did I miss it? Did I miss it? Did I miss it? Maybe I did miss it. Let me put it back again. Open in Talespire. Yes. There we go. Again, by the formidable person who built that last map is the same one as Petson. Let's have a look, see what Kelvin's Cairn looks like as he's working his way through the Icewind Dale. This is turning out to look pretty damn rad.
Oh, he's done a good job with the cliffs.
Yeah.
Just look at the detailing on the cliffs. And that ruin, oh my god. It looks so organic.
Let's make this a bit more should be icy, I guess.
Yeah. Heavy on the blues, yeah, that's
there we go.
perfect.
Some of that, a bit of that. Make it a bit darker. Maybe it's there we go. Stronger shades. Perhaps a bit too blue. We'll deal with this 1 second at a time. There we go.
Yeah, you can switch between the blues and the reds to show like, oh, it's morning time versus, you know, it's the middle of an ice storm kind of thing.
So you can actually, one of the nice things, drop that slider down a little bit, so a little bit blue, but it still does enough. Wow, that is what I would like to see, and this is obviously just a purely personal perspective, is I'd like to see a few more, I mean, this is just going to be assets thing, right? But I'd like to see a few more Eastern assets. It's difficult to do Southeast Asian architecture. It's difficult to do East Asian architecture or South Asian architecture, despite the fact they all have a lot of similarities to them. It would be amazing to see a bit more of that. I suspect that will come with time as they enable people to have custom assets.
Yeah.
But it's not there yet.
So a lot of the stuff right now, I mean, I've been hunting for the East Asian assets because my game is is heavily East Asian influenced, right?
Indeed.
Um, there's a decent bunch of the stuff that's around, but a lot of it is still kind of like I need to patch it together to give it that East Asian feel to it.
Right.
And some of the stuff is like retro converted as well. So you're right, you're absolutely right. Even the assets look kind of they're very Western fantasy based, and
Right.
it's not a complaint. It's more like this is almost par for course because this Dungeons and
Sure.
Dragons. Yeah,
Because Tolkien, all the rest of it. It's just I can't wait until you get the ability to start.
yeah.
You get more than a pagoda.
That's right.
It's like I'd like there to be an awful lot more. I'd like to be able to. I can't wait until somebody substantially more talented than me does Angkor Wat.
Yes. Or the Taj Mahal, right? Those
Yeah,
like
just
sweeping, rounded designs.
it would just be amazing. I mean, it really is amazing. Wow. Okay. I had one more, which was where was it? This one, Leopard Stat. Do. Zoom up. Ooh. 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 Wow.
Oh,
Holy shit.
as they say in Singapore, this is sweet, man.
Sweet.
Sweet. Can we see if they have Helm's Deep? Let me just do a quick check.
Yeah. Have a check for Helm's Deep while I try and
Going
zoom
forward.
down on this thing. This place is enormous. Oh, and they've done every single bit as well.
Okay, I've checked it.
Not quite to the same depth as the last one because you'd have to be insane, I think. But still,
Yeah, no,
pretty rad.
the last one, the last couple the level of detail for that is just next level. I thought I was OCD, and this guy takes the cake, man. Like OCD champion.
Yeah, amazing, amazing.
Helm's Deep. So I haven't found any of Helm's Deep yet, unfortunately. Yeah, no, I checked in Tales Tavern and Tales Bazaar. Neither of them have Helm's Deep. Let's see if it's got Gondor. Yeah, still nothing much. Hey Ramji, I need to drop soon, so
Me too, my friend. I'm just gonna. Otherwise, we're just gonna sit here.
I
But I
know,
think we should.
right?
Let's do this every couple of weeks or whatever. We can just like go and look up a bunch of amazing Talespire assets, and then just kind of like sit here and just go, wow.
Ooh, ah,
Absolutely. I'm just gonna pull up one last one, and because I just saw it and I think it looks pretty rad, and then I think we'll call it for the day. We've been taking a chance to look around Telspire. I'm going to do a bunch of additional streaming today because there's a bunch of content I want to get through. I'm going to talk about some of Kel's latest publications and Kickstarter. There's actually another thing a bit like Telspire that I just signed up to the early access for that is called Wild Shape that I'm going to look at a little bit
oh,
later
I
as
heard
well.
about that.
Yeah, and so I'm quite excited about looking at that. That is much, much more, from what my initial impression, sort of scenario, landscape creation, which I think is going to be rad. And if the two things can play things together, I'm just going to be super happy. This is, what the hell is this? This is a sort of
Oh, it's like a
city.
cliff-based fortress.
Nice. It's a bit like Citadel then. That's amazing.
Nice.
That's super. Someone built that.
Oh,
That's very
wow. That's more than decent level of like engineering gone into this.
yeah.
He's really thought it out.
Wow. Completely rad. On this amazing bombshell, I'd like to thank you very much, Casey, for joining
No
me in
worries.
a little wander around this piece. For those of you who don't know, Casey runs an amazing stream, Tianxia D&D, which is on Thursday evening, Singapore time, Thursday mornings if you're EST. And he and a bunch of his friends wander around the world that he has made up in his mind, the kind of Middle Kingdom, I believe it is. It is a Middle Kingdom?
Yeah, so it's basically the fantasy China with all the good stuff of it. It's all the good stuff is put together, so it's not set in any particular point in history. It's fantasy China, the China that could have been.
China that could have been,
Okay.
and it's a great show. It is. I think I was describing it to somebody else and saying it is not a theatrical show. It is instead a group of folks getting together, playing a game of D&D with their friends, and having a really a hell of a time. And so I just want to thank you very much for joining. I'm Ramji. I'm DM of a game called The Fourth Culture. We stream on Monday evenings. Take a moment to follow and like and subscribe and do all that lovely stuff. Check us out on YouTube. We have an amazing Discord community. Casey's part of our amazing Discord community. So many of the folks in chat, and we talk about D&D and things like Talespire and other things all day long. So exclamation mark Discord probably doesn't work. Exclamation mark links might. Let me have to see if that one works. Hang on. Oh, it did work. I just can't see stream elements. Happy days. Well, there you go. So it's tvonline/Discord will get you there, and if you take a look in the chat. Other than that, just remains me to say, please take care, everybody. Things are kind of appearing to be loosened everywhere in the world. Singapore is still under lockdown, so please just take care and be well. And I will see you a little bit later for a bit more of a stream. And thank you very much, Casey.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.